Broadcasting Studio 24 in California, the entertainment capital of the world, featuring Dr. Jeremy Brooks. It's the Education Talk Show with Jeremy Brooks. And now, your host, Jeremy Brooks.
Welcome to the Education Talk Show with Jeremy Brooks. I'm your host, Dr. Jeremy Brooks, and I am so excited because we are starting Season 3, Episode 1, and we have an amazing guest to start off this school year. We couldn't have thought of a better way to begin the school year than inviting a great friend, Dr. Brad Johnson, to the show. Dr. Johnson, welcome.
Thank you for having me, first of all, and just so excited to be here and kick off a new school year with you.
It's a great time of year, one of the most exciting times of the year, I think. The beginning of the school year, there's the sort of nervous jitters, what class am I going to have if I'm a student? Who's my teacher going to be this year? Sometimes, the excitement of back to school shopping, those kinds of things. This really is a fun time of the year. Yeah. And the other thing too is, for those educators out there gearing up to, right, the workshops, the training, planning your lessons, getting started, setting up your classroom. This is like the most magical time of the year, I think.
Yeah, it's magical and chaotic.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Dr. Johnson, of course, people know who you are. You're amazing. You're everywhere. You're the number 2 guru in the world. You've written some amazing books, but for our new viewers, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, you get to do all this traveling, all this fun stuff, but share a little bit about your background, maybe the books you've written.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I like to joke, just a teacher, because I think that's a horrible thing, just a teacher. We're so much more than that. But I began as a teacher, a life science teacher, and enjoyed every minute of it, enjoyed the students. I think when people leave the classroom, that's the thing they miss the most, even moving into administration, but I felt like I had a lot to offer the next level, and to help teachers grow and become their best. And then I moved from there to the college level to prepare future, not just teachers, but the leaders. And so I taught graduate level leadership classes and hopefully helping them kind of reimagine what leadership looks like. And from there, just started writing a few books, and people just started inviting me to speak based on the books. And, now I think I've been to 15, 16 countries, and we'll be going to several more this year, and all over the U.S., and just so fortunate to do what I do. But it's such a passion that hopefully that comes through, and why that people, do enjoy it and do resonate with it.
Well, thank you for all the incredible work that you've been doing and impacting so many educators around the world. I mean, it's just phenomenal. You've written some amazing books too. How many books have you authored now?
I lost count, but it's over 20.
Yeah.
It's over 20.
Wow. What are some of your bigger books that maybe people have that are really well known, or maybe if they want to read a book by Dr. Brad Johnson? What are like some of the books that you're well known for that maybe an educator could pick up? Yeah,
so Dear Teacher was probably the biggest seller. Mm-hmm. I wrote it kind of during COVID and after COVID as kind of an inspirational, anecdotal type book. So it has some wisdom of teaching in it, not all mine, so it's good wisdom. But it really is just a affirmational type book. And so it's been by far the best seller, translated into other languages. Putting Teachers First was my first kind of breakout book, and it's been translated into different languages too. And that was kind of the shift that I wanted to see in leadership, from the systemic type, leading systems to leading people. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, my philosophy, and I know we'll talk more about it today, but that really was my first kind of planting of the seed of change that I hope to see with leadership in education specifically.
It's really that relational intelligence piece. Is that correct? That's really taken off and having a huge impact, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It begins with relational intelligence, and that's kind of, you have IQ and EQ and it's RQ. And I've tried to take it to a whole nother level of relational leadership with even a term I call relational awareness. And so, because a lot of times we get stuck with just the self-awareness. And I'm like, when you think of a leader, oh, well, I'm kind of self-aware. I know what I need to work on or whatever. But that doesn't mean that you have relational awareness. And so relational awareness is not just understanding, yourself, but it's how do others perceive you? How do others experience you as a leader? And also, it goes even to another level of you as a leader understanding and identifying how your staff experience each other. Because there's no relationship that's in isolation. Every relationship impacts another, whether it's teacher and student, whether it's administrator and teacher, teacher. So that's why, one of my favorite sayings or quotes is that culture is simply relationships repeated over time. It's not that mission statement on the wall. That's not what culture is. And we don't create culture with policies and implementing things or even strategies, really. But the culture of a school, what it is by the relationships of the people in the school.
Wow. Well said. Very powerful stuff there. I want to unpack all of it. I will say this, though. It's amazing because I think when we think about, gosh, we need all this funding. We need all this support. We need, these items in order to fix education, to improve proficiency levels for our students, to try to help with behavior, some of the biggest challenges we're seeing. But when you think about relationships, the cost of working on a relationship, not really a big cost there, right? It's free pretty much, right?
And I sometimes wonder if that's why it's undervalued.
Yeah.
Because it's not something we have to buy like we do other things. When, again, at the end of the day, that's the most important piece.
Yeah.
We lead people. My saying is education is a leadership, or education is a people business. It's the people that make it work. It's the teachers, it's the staff, it's the students. And so when we lose that as the focus, we kind of get lost in everything else that we try to substitute for those relationships.
Well, and I can't wait to dive in more. I feel like that's probably going to be one of the biggest themes of this episode is that relational intelligence sort of piece. And I absolutely love the work that you're doing there. And it's almost like a movement, in education. And there's so many amazing educators, too, I think, that are following your lead and that are implementing those strategies at their sites and their districts. And it's a wonderful thing to see. I wanted to talk to you, though, about travel because you get to travel quite a bit. You talked about the fact that you are getting ready to go to a few more countries. I mean, you've even spoken, this is kind of cool, on a cruise ship. Can you tell us a little about your traveling and those journeys?
So, that's kind of the icing on the cake of it all. I'd love to speak to teachers anywhere, anytime. But I have been fortunate that my message has kind of resonated globally. And, I've been fortunate to build kind of a following, over 500,000 people that follow me on social media from around the world. So that kind of helps too. Yeah. But I've been to some amazing places, Malaysia. I've been to Canada several times. We've talked about Banff before. Had such a great time there.
We almost came to see you there.
Right, yeah. And you missed out.
Yes.
It was, I give a shout out to that whole conference you lead because it's an amazing conference, but it's in an amazing place as well.
Oh, yeah.
But the cruise ship, was a PD at sea. I got to speak. It went to the Bahamas, and it was just such a good time. I didn't get a chance to share with you, but I shared with you that how it worked out. One of my sessions was actually in Olive and Twist, which is a bar on the ship. It wasn't open at that time. But growing up, I loved comedians, and one of my favorite comedians was a guy named John Panette that did cruises, and he would do his stand-up routine on cruises. And I was like, man, how cool would that be, like to do something on a cruise ship like that? And I'm not funny enough to be a comedian on a cruise ship, but it worked out where I actually could do one of my PD sessions. So it kind of was like a dream come true in a lot of ways.
Oh, that's amazing. Hey, maybe as a second, if you ever get bored of this, right, you might maybe do that.
It might be, yeah. I'm saving all my jokes, so we'll see.
There you go. And then again, of course, you get to speak in Rome.
Yeah,
That's
so
exciting.
some of the people that heard me speak in Banff have invited me to Iceland. I get to go to Husavik. I hope I said that right. So excited. They were such amazing people, and I expect them to be nothing but just amazing hosts. And so they're going to take me whale watching.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm excited. I hope I don't get seasick. And there's a couple of foods. One of the things I love to do when I travel is try foods of different cultures. And some of them are very different, but you can tell I don't turn down very much food. And so I've tried just about anything everywhere I go. So they have a certain food over there that it's called rotten shark, although it's not, but that's the name they give it. But I'm actually looking forward to giving it a try.
Oh.
And then I go from there to Rome, and I get to speak to the National Principals Association of Italy in Rome. And so that's another place that kind of bucket list. I'm kind of bucket list living, actually, just very fortunate. The Colosseum is a place I've wanted to see since a kid. I love gladiator movies and that type of thing. So I'm just totally excited and thrilled to be going to those two countries.
Just amazing to see the impact that you're having. It's funny. I think a while back when we talked about you being on the show, I mean, you were traveling to this place and that place, and it was hard to find a time when because you're so busy, which is amazing. But again, incredible impact that you're having on so many educators across the world. So thank you for all of that. I wanted to ask you real quick too, of all the places you've been, are there any education systems or anything that you saw when you're in a country, you're like, man, that's amazing. We'd be great to borrow that, or that's a fantastic idea. Have you ever experienced anything like that in any of the places?
Well, I'll tell you what I've experienced that I think is the most interesting is how that so many other countries work with other countries. Like if you go to Canada, you'll see that they do a lot with like the UK, with Australia. You go to Saudi Arabia and you see they do a lot of work with like the UK and other places. So it seems like there's a lot more, like sharing of ideas and stuff more than we do here in the U.S. I know we're so large that, it kind of makes a difference, but I'm like, I really feel like when these different countries come together and kind of share their best practices and ideas and stuff that, you can take away those pieces that might fit the best or work the best and really elevate. And so you're always hearing something new or seeing something new. And it's not that we're always, one of the things I always kind of fuss about is always chasing the next thing. But, when you see things that are tried and true and things that benefit them and that it may work or, it may not, just really helps increase the conversation and helps, all raise our awareness and knowledge of education as well. So I think that's one of the big pieces. And the other thing around the world, which is something I think we do pretty well with inclusion and special ed. I see a lot of other countries really beginning to focus on that and more. And inclusion is really like a big topic internationally, which I like to see.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so important to help elevate everybody's game.
Yeah. Couple things. It sounds like almost like a global professional learning community, or PLC.
Absolutely.
And, what an amazing idea of countries coming together to share best practices. And of course, that's only going to benefit students. And sometimes what we see is, teachers kind of work in isolation. Schools can kind of do that too sometimes. And getting together, not just as a school site or as a teacher, but district wide, even, globally or internationally, sharing best practices, that can only benefit our students even more, right? So that's amazing.
Well, and it helps you see that everybody's kind of doing some of the similar things and experiencing the same things, and gives us all more, you just hit the nail on the head. I feel like so often teachers, and they do kind of work in isolation. You're in your classroom all day. And so to be able to come together, kind of a collegiality and encourage, if nothing more, just encourage each other and lift each other up, I think is so important for this profession too.
It's funny. I remember when I first started teaching, it was my second year. I was at a K-8 site, and we had the junior high side, then we had the elementary side. And I remember going over to talk to a teacher, a third grade teacher. Of course, I taught eighth grade. And I was like, oh, I haven't been over here on this side of the campus this year. It's kind of nice over here.
Right.
But that just kind of reminds you, how that can happen. And it was, I just thought that was kind of the funniest thing, that I hadn't been on that side of the campus. And it's like, this is the same campus.
The same campus,
same staff.
exactly.
Yeah, but, that tends to happen. And so it's great to get out to share ideas and to collaborate as a staff. And, of course, we can share ideas and benefit students even more. You mentioned inclusion. For our audience members who maybe are new to this idea of the inclusion model, can you share a little bit about that real quick, what that is?
Yeah, well, you think about there's different types and different levels, but, it's basically trying to mainstream students, I think, and get them like special ed into their least restrictive environment, and, helping them really. And when I look at, like Dubai does a great job. I'll give a shout out to Berna, is a friend of mine over there that does a great job. And they are really focused on giving every child the tools they need to be successful. And I think that's the bottom line with it is, we talk here, we use the word equity, but it really is about, what they need, each child needs specifically. One of my quotes that always travels well is that, there's no such thing as a standardized student. They all have their talents, strengths, abilities, and passions to be brilliant. And so, and I actually, when I spoke in Dubai at their inclusion conference, it was about helping them find their brilliance. And every child has that.
Wow.
And so that's really, to me, what inclusion is about, is helping every child find their brilliance and bringing it out.
Oh, well said. That was beautiful. Okay, so I wanted to ask you this question right here. 30 years ago, when you first stepped into education, did you ever imagine the work that you'd be able to do to, around the world to impact so many educators?
Of course. No. My first few years, I was a male teacher, so you usually coach a lot. Man, my 20s was teaching, coaching, and going to graduate school. So I was probably just barely surviving day to day without a thought of what was coming down the road. So probably not really.
Yeah.
But the parallel to that is I think doing all of that, and it's one thing I encourage students today. A lot of times they tell people, like in your 20s, take time to find yourself. And I'm like, no, in your 20s, you have the most energy you're ever going to have. Go do all you can do, achieve all you can do, and then you can find yourself later on. But I really think that helped me was, the work I put in, the time, going to graduate school, getting those degrees, working that hard, building, my
that
expertise and
too.
everything. Yeah. And so it did allow me later on to kind of come into my own and decide, well, when I got my doctorate, I was like, if I can write a dissertation, and it was like 200 and something pages, I'm like, I can write a book. Now, it needs to be more interesting than my dissertation, but so that kind of, evolved into that, but it wasn't something definitely that, I had like a game plan for.
Wow. So that's what kind of took you down the path of kind of writing more and all of that too. And that's amazing that you did all those things. And it is true, as you said, a lot of young teachers starting out, we're coaching and you're, volunteering on this committee or that committee and very busy. And it is interesting too, because a lot of teachers, of course, they're doing class at night. They're earning their master's degree or maybe even their doctorate degree, and it can be quite a bit in the beginning. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, so next question. Leadership. It's on leadership. So your work centers on relational leadership, as we kind of talked about. If someone asked you to define great leadership in just one sentence, what would you say?
Well, I don't know. It might be a run-on sentence here.
That's all right.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But I have what I call like the pillars of the psychology of the relational leadership, and it's know them, build them up, value them, believe in them, and trust them. Wow. And so if that takes work, but if you do that, you will have a staff. I give the example. I had a friend, we called him Coach Z. His name was Zatternack, and so it's kind of long. And anyway, he went to school and got his doctorate and became a principal. But because he was a coach for so many years, he kept his CDL driver's license. One of the cool things he would do is he taught middle school, and a lot of his teachers, had younger kids that would go to the elementary school near the middle school. And so what he would do, instead of them having to drop off their children early for their teacher to keep up with them, he would let them bring them to school and sit in their classroom with their mom or dad or whatever. And then before school started, he would load them all on the bus and drive them to the elementary school and let them out.
Oh, wow.
So that they didn't have to worry about it, but they got to spend a little bit more time with their kids too. And he passed away a couple of years ago, and I remember so many of the teachers talking about that's what they remembered.
Oh.
Not the policies, not, all these things, but the humanity of it. And they're like, I would have run through a wall for that man.
Wow.
That is the relational part. It's knowing who you lead, seeing them as a human first, not a teacher, but as a human, that small talk. So I know that's more than one sentence, but it really is knowing who you lead so that you can lead them better. How about that? That'll work.
Oh, that's amazing. Well said again. And there's so many incredible points you made right there. When we look at the different types of leadership, there's the hero leader, there's servant leaders. And it's interesting because we can lead from a position of power, right? Positional power, as like a manager or a boss, whatever it might be, supervisor or principal. But in order for people to really follow you, working on those skills and the connections, then you have people, again, as you said, that will run through a wall for you. And versus just, oh, the boss is looking, I better get to work and kind of do X, Y, and Z, whatever the task might be, and get that done. But, folks might do the bare minimum. But if we really want to achieve the lofty goals that oftentimes we have, it's working on those relationships to inspire, right? People to really want to follow you and follow that vision and building that culture, right, where that happens.
Well, it's the difference between them following you because they have to, and we call that compliance, although I hate that word because it's so overused, but, versus them being committed to your leadership. And that's the level that relational leadership takes, is taking them from having to follow you to want to follow you. And when you have somebody that's committed to you, man, that's a game changer.
Oh, yeah. It also reminds me, too, what you mentioned of a Maya Angelou quote. A lot of people have heard this. You may have heard this. People won't always remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel, right? And it is so true. Something about that sticks with you. And you do have those incredible, inspiring leaders out there, whether it be a site leader or district leader, whomever. And sometimes they will leave you with this feeling like, again, you would move mountains to whatever they need. And so that really is the most effective type of leadership. And I'm wondering if there's research out there that shows that. I'm sure there is, right?
Yeah, the 5 pillars or tenets that I was telling you about, know them, build them, it's all based on psychology, because that's kind of, what I write a lot about is what I speak about. And the reason I do that is because when I'm speaking to a group of teachers, it doesn't matter what they teach, it doesn't matter what grade level, they're all human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And so speaking that language, human psychology to them, it affects every one of them. Because you think of the people that go into a PD or a meeting or staff development, and they're like, what does this do for me? How do this doesn't concern me or whatever, And so I make sure that whatever I speak about connects with every single person. Wow. And so that really is part of it, that the psychology of it. And so there's so much research from the big 5 personality traits. And hopefully we'll have time to get to it later, but teachers tend to have a certain personality trait that draws them to teaching. And but like I said, hopefully we'll have time later. But so that's part of it. Things like the Gallup polls with strength.
Oh yeah.
Valuing your staff and feeling valued. When they feel like their strengths are being utilized, it increases their engagement. So there's tons of research. People think it's like just kind of fluff with relationships and, anybody can do it, or it's a personality type. It's really not. It has as much research as any other field.
Yeah.
It's just something, like you said, it's not something you can easily like buy as a program. So maybe that's why we don't think of it as being so important.
But, the exciting thing is there's no cost to it, right? You can decide to, treat people better. And you could decide to have trust in your staff and build that trust for them to follow you too. And you don't need a big budget for that.
Right.
That's saying hello at the door and stopping by classrooms and how can I support you? Do you need maybe this book or that? Just being there and being supportive. Those are really the kinds of things that help to build it. It's something I don't even know. Do people put that in their strategic plan? You really have to do that, right?
Well, here's what's interesting. It's the things we expect teachers to do with students. So shouldn't leaders do it with their staff?
That's so true. It's so true. I wanted to talk to you about one other thing too. I think you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier. It's, we're at that time. It's the exciting time, most exciting time of the year, right? The first day is coming up for a lot of schools throughout the country. And right now, a lot of educators, they have those in-service days. They got those professional development days, and they're in training. But I wanted to talk to you about, and I don't think this was in here, but it's something I thought about too. And I thought, I want to share this with you and maybe see if we could talk about this too. Is a lot of times we see there's a lot of new initiatives, a lot of new ideas. And sometimes, we're going to give this a shot this year and we're going to do, X, Y, and Z, and all teachers are going to do this or all staff are going to do this across the district. And then the next year we throw that out, we try something different. How important is it that we actually try something and try to see if it sticks, try it again the next year and the next year to really make sure that it has a chance versus being sort of a fad or a trend? Because I think one of the things we see is that's where we see some of the burnout and some of the, this something new, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always equate it to working out because think about it. I'm going to start the gym. So I go in and work out real hard. But when I come home the next morning, am I going to see a change? No. I work out all week. At the end of the week, am I going to see a big change? No. It takes time.
Yeah.
So if we just work out one time, there was no difference. That's kind of like cycling through these initiatives. It didn't work in 2 months. Let's throw it out. Well, it probably isn't supposed to work in 2 months.
Yeah.
In fact, what initiative, if an initiative was that successful in a month or 2 months, it would be all that everyone used. You know what I'm saying? So, there's that level, like you said, of patience. The other thing I think too that we do wrong is we keep adding on. It's like one of the jokes I make is that, good leaders try to take things away. The average leader just keeps giving them a bigger plate
Wow.
to
like
put everything on, and it's like, but it's true. But my thing is you shouldn't add one thing to their plate this fall until you take at least one thing off.
Oh, wow.
Because think about it. I mean, it's just like, overload. If you have a bag and you put so much in it, You're going to, where are you going to put it? And so, and if you're adding it, then that means something in there isn't effective. So what do we need to take out?
And I think we see that too a lot of times, even at the district level. A lot of our principals and vice principals, there's all these different departments, and they have all these really important things that they want to do to help impact students. But sometimes it becomes a little too much on the sites if we keep adding all these different initiatives. And one of the key things too is it's like throwing spaghetti on a wall to see what sticks, right? And if we were to take just a few things and work on those and try to become really efficient at those, or try to improve those initiatives, we might see it work.
Absolutely.
See the fidelity that we're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're right, especially at the school level. I think the administration has such a tough job too. I write a lot, and some, I guess, kind of get, frustrated with me because I'm like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it's like, be more personable or whatever. And just, or asking, the small talk, the little things. It does require a little bit more work, but like you said, it doesn't cost anything otherwise. Yeah. But it's like, I understand the pressure they're under and all, they just have these mandates handed down to
people that are running different district superintendents, and they'll confide in me and share different things with me too. And sometimes
spill.
They'll share different reports they get. Sometimes too, they're getting a lot of stuff from the state, so there's this state department that wants, this energy report filled out by this deadline, and there's huge fines.
Their boards are wanting.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of pressure, even from the state level or the county level, on districts as well. So, leadership, and I think this applies across the board to even private enterprise too, companies.
Absolutely.
So, taking a few initiatives and making them stick. I wanted to share this too. It reminds me of when I was a vice principal, we tried PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports. And we had an amazing program. It was the top program in the district. We got California Gold status, but we didn't get that overnight. A lot of the work started way before I got there. There was a pilot program. They gave it a shot. A lot of staff and teachers told me it was messy the first few years. My principal told me, you should have seen it the first few years. It was so tough, but they stuck with it. And then they got it going pretty good, the program, a lot of fidelity. And then COVID hit, and the program, what we see is it sort of kind of got a little dismantled. When I came in, I was able to take and benefit from what they'd done before, and I helped build it back up. And then I, of course, added to it with adding stakeholders and things like that. But, the thing is when I'd taken over the program, it had been going for about 5 years already. And so, but if they had tried it that first year, that first 2 years, and said, we give up, let's try something else, this isn't working, then it may have been one of those education fads, right? So,
well, and that's part of it too, is that it's hard to implement something over time because of the turnover of even administrators. One of the things when I talk to administrators that I like to really help them understand is, the average, I call it life expectancy, but it's the work expectancy. But, a principal only typically stays at a school about 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
On average,
like
that's
an
a
NFL
turnover
career.
rate. Yeah, exactly. And, when you think about it, if you come in and you're going to be like, we're going to do all these things, we're going to do all these things, your staff's going to sit there and go, well, you're going to be gone in 2 years, the math says. So we don't really have to do anything, and I don't mean that to be facetious or whatever, but it's like, that's kind of where we're at. And that's the other reason, though, that you really need to build those relationships with them to get them on your side, so that you can, when you need to do something or you want to try something, that you have their support. Because, and it's same thing with superintendents, the turnover rate, man, is every like 2 to 3 years or something. And so, if they really, and what we think is really the opposite of what helps, because think about if you if I go into school or you go into school and you're like, I only have 2 or 3 years to get it together, what you're going to do is, people call it micromanaging. I don't really think it's micromanaging, but what I think it is whatever helped you be successful, you think will help everybody else be successful. So I don't really think it's bad intent, like, oh, it's my way or the highway, although there are those too. But I think it's, I became this successful because of this. So if y'all do this, but that's not necessarily the case. And so it's how can they do it their way that will help them be most successful? And I think that's the shift that a lot of leaders have to do, is realize, what got you to your point, what made you successful, and necessarily what will make everybody else successful. And so it's not really about that anymore. It's about you, again, knowing them enough to know what will help them be successful and build that relationship with them so you can, because it's the run through the wall. If they feel that way about you, it doesn't really matter what you implement. They're going to give it their best because you're implementing it.
Yeah, that is so true. And I wanted to talk to you more about that too. And, this idea of kind of putting teachers first. Your book, Putting Teachers First, it's resonated with school leaders and educators around the world. I mean, that was an amazing book you wrote. People everywhere. I mean, it's even translated to multiple languages, right? If every principal listening today made just one change tomorrow morning, what would you hope that it would be? Would it be the focus on relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it would, but even more than that, I think it's about, I say know them and build them up. And build them up is the understanding what are their strengths and their talents. Because, every teacher that come in has a skill set. They've gone to school. They have the degrees. They're professional. And I think it's just so important to recognize that and treat them that way and value them that way.
As professionals.
And, treat them as a human first, but value them for their role and for their professionalism. And so, the Gallup that I talked about earlier, one of the huge research finds that they have over 50 years or whatever, is that and it wasn't just teachers, they do business, all corporate, but it includes teachers. And what they found is that when someone feels like their strengths are being utilized in their role, and they're valued in their role, they're 6 times more engaged. That's powerful.
Oh, yeah.
You think about, I have a teacher A and a teacher B, and teacher B is 6 times more engaged. Which child, which room do you want your child in? No brainer. And so, but it comes back to that simple thing of building them up, building up their strengths. Because see, that's one of the things we get wrong. We always focus on what we don't do well. We focus on weaknesses. Always make the joke, we hire people for their strengths, but then we lead them or manage them based on their weaknesses, instead of figuring out what are their strengths and helping them tap into those so that they can be excellent.
Wow.
And that's the powerful thing. I would say, value them enough to let them lead, let them utilize their strengths and their talents. And you'll get, if I have a teacher that's 6 times more engaged, that's who I want on my staff.
That's powerful data too, and that's a longitudinal study. And I mean, I can't think of another organization besides Gallup. I mean, the research that they do, they've got it down. Shout out, by the way, to Gallup. For our viewers out there, if you've never done this, they have I think it's called the Strengths Finder.
Yep, the Strength Finders too, right?
Yeah,
they do a lot of research, but some of it is just, man, like you said, it's not a simple little. It's long. It's over time. It's over decades, and it's hundreds of thousands of people. So it's some of the richest data and research that you can look at.
And the other thing too that's exciting is some of our folks that are watching too out there, viewers, they could tap into that too. They have questionnaires that you could do. You can go online. I don't know. I think some of them there's a fee maybe. So just kind of a heads up there. But
I think it's pretty cheap though. I think if you do their online test, it's like $9.99 or something like that. But it gives you your top 5 strengths that you have, leadership strengths.
And it tells you how to build on those and empowers you as a leader to, doesn't matter what organization, you're a part of, to be a better leader. So that's a great resource out there. Teacher retention. I want to talk to you about that. This is something that we're seeing across the country is there's a big teacher shortage. Schools across America continue to struggle with recruiting and retaining teachers, why are we losing so many outstanding educators? Especially the first 5 years, we see like half of all educators leave within the first 5 years. So the turnover, and then the other thing too is we just, we see a lot of people retiring and not enough people filling that hole coming in. So,
and other countries do a better job. People always get angry at me when I use Finland as an example. They're like, they're a small country, they're very different. And I'm like, yeah, except for the fact that they came here in the 1970s and observed our school systems and took back a lot of that to implement into theirs. So, but what happened is they took what we did right back then and added to it to make something great. And we went the opposite direction. You think about in the 70s, we had multiple recesses and we had, longer breaks. We had minimal testing back then. Now they say that on average, a child will take over 200 standardized tests before they graduate high school. How insane is that?
Oh, yeah.
You think about 200. How many does the average adult take? And people are like, oh, doctors and lawyers. I'm like, how many of you are doctors and lawyers? I know the ones arguing with me online are not a doctor or a lawyer. But it's like, 200, it's just insane. But anyway, so back to your point, I'm just venting there, I guess. But it's just the whole culture.
Yeah.
You think about it. A teacher 20 years ago, their job was to teach. Now they have to be a counselor. They have to be security. They have to be, there's so much that's put on teachers. And the sad thing is I don't even blame the administrators really because it's a cultural thing. A lot of times when I post stuff online, I really do try to bring it back to sound reasoning and kind of look at it from a philosophical standpoint. But it's like, everybody's like, oh, well, just parent. Well, when both parents have to work just to make ends meet now, it's a different, there's so many dynamics that are different now. But at the end of the day, a lot of it gets placed back on the teacher. Like, well, where can we fit it in? Oh, I know, let's put it. And so, there's so much pressure on teachers and so much expectation. And it's like, one of the things in one article I wrote recently is that so much of what the teachers have to deal with in the classroom isn't even really considered classroom management. When children are belligerent, when they fight, when they, throw stuff, when they threaten someone, that's not classroom management.
Those extreme behaviors.
That exactly, yeah. And so they're not trained to deal with that, but they don't have support that they need. But even your administrators aren't really trained for that, And unfortunately, we cut out school. Our school counselor, I hate to say it, but they're mainly like our testing guru, set up all the standardized tests. They don't even get to counsel like they need to. And, so it's a dynamic that's not getting better. It's just getting worse. But there's just, and that's why nobody wants to go into the field. And I can't tell you the number of teachers that, when I post something, they'll be like, I try to encourage their own children not to go into teaching. And isn't that sad?
Yeah. Oh, it really is. And when you look at, too, I think some of the portrayal, too, of educators, in the mainstream media, there's the Bad Teacher movie. There's the, School of Rock. Love those movies. Or, but at the same time, look at how the teachers portrayed. There was a comedy that came out, too, where the guys, they go to Las Vegas and one of them is a teacher, one's a dentist, etc. And what does he do? He opens up the desk and he takes the, cash from the fundraiser to go to Vegas. So, those portrayals, I think, they don't depict teachers in the best light, of course, and education. And so I don't know, maybe that kind of is an impact too. Maybe it's reflective of kind of the broader, things that we're seeing as well. There's just so many things. By the way, I wanted to mention this. It sounds like Finland did their strengths finder with,
Well, over 90% of their teachers tend to stay through retirement.
That's amazing.
And like you said, half of ours leave within the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And so, but it really is. And some of the things they do, which has nothing to do with economics or size or anything, but they treat them with respect. They don't have a nationalized teacher evaluation. So it's kind of, most of their teaching is what we call local or school-based. So, if they're evaluated, it's just by people in the building. And it's more of like a collegial thing instead of top-down,
Wow. So it's colleagues that are doing the evaluation.
Yeah,
Wow.
well, even their principal is more seen as like a colleague and not a leader.
Yeah.
And so, all of that matters. All of that matters. But they're treated with more respect. They're given more respect. Pay's always important, but for most teachers, it really is, the lack of respect, the discipline of the kids, which
Exhaustion.
Burnout. Just overload. And part of that goes back to, we talk about those big 5 personality traits. One of them is called agreeableness. The big 5 personality traits are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And so agreeableness tends to be one. The research shows that if you're high in agreeableness, there's 3 fields that you tend to be drawn towards. Number 1 is teaching. Number 2 is nursing. And number 3 is social work. If you think about it, those people tend to have the same kind of personalities: kind, caring, empathetic, other-focused, affirmational. And so those are the kind of teachers, those are traits you want for teachers, but those tend to be the traits that teachers possess.
Wow.
And so the problem with that, though, is that it's a personality trait. It's something you're born with, so you really don't even realize that you're like that. So not knowing that, you don't understand the challenges that come with having that personality trait. And so some of the challenges with that is not being able to set boundaries, not being able to say no, not dealing with conflict. You avoid conflict. So all these things that add to the teacher burnout is things that come from just being that personality trait.
That's so interesting. Versus, I imagine there are other personality traits that, are geared more towards, conflict resolution, dealing with that.
Competition, more, not being disagreeable, but not caring so much about what people think, which, a high agreeable person is very other focused.
Wow.
And so they're very self-focused. And it's, that's one of the things I share with teachers to kick off the school year, is understanding that about themselves, so that they do realize, I don't do a very good job of setting boundaries. I never said no.
Wow.
And so, but not knowing it is part of the problem. But once they realize it and I help them identify it, then you learn to do something about it.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it helps you begin. It's like I said, the first time you say no, you're going to feel guilty, but it'll get easier, I promise.
Wow. Well, we got you for about 12 more minutes,
All
and I
right.
want to talk to you about your wonderful books here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Room 212, this is one of your latest books. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, the Coffee with the Custodian's latest. This was the previous one. So I call them edufables. So they're stories. It's the first full narratives in education. And so Room 212 is just a story about someone coming into education, second career, and just the struggles that come with, being a teacher, dealing with students, dealing with all the pressure. And his mentor teacher, which is kind of just the teacher down the hall, but, where do you find the best mentors down the hall? And so it's just a story of helping him survive the year and learn really how to take control of the class and how to, focus on the students. And it just has a lot of, from my experiences, a couple of people that I work with. So it's based on, kind of real things, but it's that narrative driven story. And I can't tell you the number of people that, are like, this is the first education book I actually read the whole book.
Wow. Well, I could see that. And what a fabulous book to read when you're in a credential program. You're going through and you're learning about being a teacher. I mean, that's...
you live it in the story.
And that can, of course, empower people to kind of take on and, get through some of those challenges reading that book. And, of course, Coffee with the Custodian, I'd love to talk to you about that. That is a beautiful book that you've written. Can you share a little bit about that book?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the same thing. It's kind of based on my career, my experiences, and I've written 20 something books. I think they're all great, but it really is the standard. Let's talk about some strategies. Let's add some anecdotes to kind of make it digestible where people actually read it. But I was like, I want to take it to the next level. And so I had both of these in mind. I just wrote that one first. And then the Coffee with the Custodian, I was like, it really is about that relation. For the last 3 or 4 years, I've just really studied the relational leadership, relational intelligence, and kind of creating that relational awareness that I think is so important. And I was like, the best way to do that is to write a story that people can. And so I had the Principal Association president from Norway messaged me, and he's like, I couldn't put it down. I could just see myself in the story. And so it's one of those things where, we talk about, because I have so many people message me like, how do you speak in other countries? How do you speak, internationally and stuff? And I'm like, because it's a story that resonates with everybody. It's not necessarily a cultural thing. It's a people thing. It's a human thing. And so, I tried to write it from just the standpoint of when you read it, if you're in education at all, if you've ever thought about going into leadership or you're in leadership, you really see yourself in it. And the beauty of it is, the struggles, the things that they go through, the ups and downs, is something that you get to see lived out in the story. And I think that's so much important for a takeaway than just, here's 5 strategies that you should think about or include. And then both have a very extensive study guides in the back where you can do like a book studies or do, like a PLC or something like that.
Well, that's amazing. And for folks out there that are watching who would like to learn more about how they can purchase your books, where would they go to find those?
Oh, they're Amazon, Barnes and Noble, everywhere.
That's amazing. So and that's funny too, because I was talking about, we wanted to get some of your books for the show. And we're kind of on a tight, time crunch because we're kind of working on the studio and getting some things ready. And I thought, where can we get Dr. Johnson's book? And I thought, well, we can probably just run right here to the Barnes and Noble and grab her book. So that's fun. So they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And if they don't have them in the store, they'd have them online or could order them through Barnes and Noble.
That's
too,
amazing. Well, I got a few more questions for you. I did want to talk to you a little bit more about relationships too. And you often say that relationships come before results. Why is that principle even more important today than 20 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I like to share is that a child entering school today has absorbed more information than their grandparent leaving school. And that's mind-blowing if you really think about it.
It really is.
We're just overwhelmed with information and data. And what's funny, though, is in what we call this connected world, we are all so isolated, socially. And so I think people are really craving that human connection and interaction. And so to me, as a leader, that's like the most important thing is, building that, because that's where trust comes from relationships. You're talking about leading like transactional or, compliance, but you can't make someone trust you. You have to build that just like in personal relationships.
And you have to earn it.
And so absolutely. But it comes through that. It comes through those relationships, whether it's teacher and student. And, it's kind of like the teachers talking about they'd run through a wall for him. It's the same way with students. When students know you really care about them, you're there for them, you believe in them, they will always rise to the occasion. Yeah. And that's how you get the most from them. And that's really what we want.
And so to drive results, to increase academics, whether it be math scores or test scores for whatever area, or to improve the behavior on campus, really the key is to build those relationships with the students and the staff and with everybody on your campus, really.
Well, you think about in life, like, you're probably going to work harder for someone that you like than someone you dislike. That's human nature. And so it's the same way, whether it's the classroom or a leader, of a school or business or in a personal relationship. You will get the most from people when they feel that way about you. Yeah. And so that's why I'm always talking about like relationships before rigor, because if you don't have the relationship, you can still get some, but it's not the same level.
Does that mean more icebreakers, by the way? More, those sorts of things?
I'm not a big icebreaker guy.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with them, but that's not what I do. But it's just the humanity of asking people how they're doing, about their family, really showing them that you care about them as a human first, I think is something that we are, and people need encouragement. They need to be shown appreciation. Everybody likes to be recognized for a job well done, no matter how big or small it is.
Wow.
And it's those little things, those little snippets of humanity that always will help us want to do more. It's like the little kid, you brag on them. Oh, yeah, well, then watch this. It's like that we never lose that as a human.
That's so true. That's so true. We got a few more minutes, and I wanted to get through. We're close, so we'll get through these, I think. And then we'll move on to our final word segment. So we're doing great here. Looking ahead, the future, what gives you the greatest hope for education?
It's got to be the people, there's still people that care, still people that get up every day and go to work. I think there's leaders out there trying to change. I think the hardest part is that even good leaders, you can't change a broken system. I wish people, but I see a lot of parent groups coming up. For instance, in LA, there's a parent group that just had the computers taken out of elementary school. So basically, I think kindergarten and first grade has 0, and like second grade, third grade has like 10 or 20 minutes a day. I don't remember the exact number, so we'd have to go look them up. But, it's parents realizing that the road we're down is not working, and they're the ones that need to speak up, because that's who they'll listen to. They're not going to listen to teachers. They're not really even going to listen to administrators. But when the parents speak up, and so I work with a lot of these parent groups all around the country, whether it's Recess or Tech or whatever it is, to encourage them to, keep fighting that good fight.
We see a lot of, this is an interesting trend that's kind of happening too now, where we see even in a lot of other countries, they're, putting away the tablets and the technology for a period of the day or even the full day, depending on the grade level, right?
Yeah. Sweden, Norway, a lot of the Nordic countries have done away with it in elementary school and immediately seen the benefits. Even in the kids, just the psychological benefit, much less the academic too.
And think about, you work on the writing and work on all kinds of other really important things.
Team building, working together,
maybe fit in some
social
cursive
skills.
Yeah, you hear that a lot, right? Okay, let's see. If you had an opportunity to speak to every new teacher before they walked into their classroom this fall, what would you want them to remember?
Be your best self. And by that, I mean, don't show up to bring your best, but realize you do have a best to bring, your talent, your strength. You don't have to compare yourself to someone else. You don't have to compare yourself to the teacher down the hall. You've got talents and strengths they don't have. And so once you figure that out and you bring that and you're comfortable in your classroom, what you bring to the table is what your kids need this year. Wow. And that's powerful when you realize that.
It really is. It's just been amazing having you on. We got about a minute or so left. I like to give our guests the final word, a final message, a final closing, opportunity to share words of advice or words of wisdom. And you've shared so much wisdom and advice. But this could be for parents. This could be for anybody, leaders out there, aspiring educators. Do you have a final closing message, final closing words of advice for, and it could even be a story that you want to share. It's up to you.
Well, I think for the teachers, I always like to say, if no one's told you lately, thank you. Thank you for what you do, the time, the energy, the heart that you pour into the work. It's hard work. It's hard work, but it's hard work. And so, I don't think they're recognized enough. I don't think they're thanked enough. And so, if no one has told you lately, thank you for all that you do. That's one thing I've noticed traveling around the world is that regardless of the culture, any of all the differences, the heart of the teacher's the same. And that's what inspires me every day to get up and keep going is that I don't care where the teacher is. I don't care whether it's a city, rural, whatever. They all have that same heart to impact students, to impact lives, and to make a difference. And so that is, and that may be my hope for the future, is that they never lose that because teachers are the difference makers.
Oh, that's incredible. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for
thank you for having
all of your
me.
wonderful words and messages. Before we let you go, we have, of course, people who view the show in 47 countries around the world. They're all over. And if they want you to come speak or they want to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you? How can they find you?
Well, all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is Dr. Brad Johnson. DrBradJohnson.com is my website. Doctor spelled out, Doctor Brad Johnson. But yeah, pretty much if you just Google me, you're going to find a way to contact me.
Well, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show, and we wish you the best, inspiring all those wonderful educators. It is a busy season for you, and we appreciate you stopping by the show, and it really does mean the world to us that you stopped by Studio 24. And for our viewers out there, thank you for watching the show. We appreciate you. We hope you have a good start of your school year. Thank you again. And
thank you for having me. Glad to be here. Glad we got to finally sit down together.
Hey, and anytime you're in California, you got to let us know.
I will.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching the Education Talk Show with Jeremy Brooks. It's been a fabulous episode with Dr. Brad Johnson. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.